Mark the date on your calendar. Saturday, May 21st, 2022. It's the Southpaws 10th Anniversary Listener Appreciation Party. Join Jack Prince and I as we celebrate 10 years of Southpaws. We'll have a special musical performance by Rissa Jade. We'll have food and drinks available. We'll have a limited supply of Southpaws coffee cups available for sale. And we will be recording a brand new episode of Southpaws in front of a live audience. But this party is invitation only. You must be fully vaccinated and you must wear a mask inside the building. To request an invite to the party, email us at southpawsradio@gmail.com or call 616-723-6635. It's the Southpaws 10th Anniversary Listener Appreciation Party. Don't miss it. Be there.
For the hardest-hitting show in talk radio, the true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson. I'm your co-host.
My name is Jack Prince, your fellow co-host.
And Jack, we've got a lot to talk about. I can't believe we have to talk about the Academy Awards, but you can thank Chris Rock and Will Smith for that. We've got some opinions on that we're going to express.
Exactly.
Plus, we've got a lot of political stuff. Plus, we're going to warn you ahead of time, we have a bizarre off-the-cuff story that involves medical stuff and sexual stuff. So when we get to that part, we will warn you to hide the children because this story is really bizarre. Before we get started with today's show, a couple of reminders. You can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Spreaker, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, or Reason.fm by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. So be sure to listen to us there as well. I real quickly want to thank everybody who has reached out to me in the last week or so. On March 25th, last Friday, I had my gallbladder removed. Pretty good surgery. I'm not really experiencing any issues. I feel great, actually. Been able to lift stuff, which I was really surprised that they didn't give me restrictions on lifting. But things are working out pretty good. So one down, and then the kidney surgery in June. That's going to be the bad one, I figure. Well, Jack, what do you think? Should we start talking about what happened at the Academy Awards?
Yeah, let's jump right in. That's controversial. It's not our normal fare, but let's do it.
All right. So for those of you that did not watch the Academy Awards Sunday night, Chris Rock, the comic actor, made a comment to Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, who is suffering from alopecia. Alopecia is a autoimmune disorder. It's fairly common among black women, which I'm really shocked to discover. 1 in 3 black women will get this in their lifetime. And it's pretty common for women, too. I mean, scary common. But black women, why is it black people always seem to get the short end of the stick medically between kidney failure and all sorts of different diseases? It's just not fair. It isn't. So Chris Rock made a joke toward Jada Pinkett Smith where he said, "Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it." Now, after he said the joke, they cut to a camera showing Will and Jada Smith, and she's rolling her eyes, and he's kind of laughing at the joke. Well, there's no kind of. He's laughing.
She was laughing initially as well.
Yeah. Well, something happened. I don't know if she said something. I don't know if bing, the light went on or what. All of a sudden, Will Smith goes up on stage. This is like 8-9 seconds after the joke.
It's a long walk.
Yeah, and then goes up and then walks, which takes another 5 seconds or so, and slaps Chris Rock right across the face, turns around, walks back to his seat. Chris Rock makes the comment that Will Smith slapped the shit out of him. Then Will Smith is back at his seat, and you can hear him off camera, and he's telling Chris Rock, "Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth." Direct quote. So
and in one moment, the halls of tradition, of honor, the Sidney Poitier style of honor and class, and the message to the world, the culture setting Hollywood, was reduced to a punk-ass setting that really, honestly, wasn't just shocking, but I'm saying it's indicative of a culture we have today, particularly when the entire setting stood up and gave Will a standing ovation. I've heard many people, including Jabbar and other celebrities, dignitaries, political people, say that was ghastly. That was as bad as the initial attack.
Yeah. By the way, this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. Let's go back to 1973. Marlon Brando wins the Academy Award for Best Actor for The Godfather. Marlon Brando boycotted the Oscars that year and actually refused his Oscar and sent a representative, a Native American woman who had a speech that was written by Marlon Brando that she was supposed to recite. They would not let her air the speech because of time constraints. Yeah, however, she did explain that Marlon Brando was refusing the Academy Award because of Hollywood's treatment of Native Americans, which set off boos. It also set off cheers. It reportedly set off John Wayne to the point that security had to hold him back from going up on stage and punching this Native American woman.
Where the hell was the security this week, or last week? As Howard Stern said, he could have been killed.
That's a very good question. Yeah, and you know, a lot of people say, well, it was just a slap. Well, hold on there, because there have been people that have fallen from getting slapped. They hit their head on the ground. They receive a traumatic brain injury, and they die.
And it's an attack. It's a bodily attack in front of millions of people.
There was just the story about 2 weeks ago. A vocal coach in New York City was pushed down to the pavement and struck her head, and she lingered in a coma for a couple of days and passed away. This was Debbie Harry's voice coach back in the 70s. Very prolific person in the art scene in New York. They finally found the woman that shoved her down. She's facing murder charges.
Yeah,
or at least manslaughter. I don't know the exact charges. So
when I say he could have been killed, I'm not just referring to the fact that physically you could have fallen and been killed. That's bad enough. It's the fact that you can stroll up in a power stride, okay, for a good 50, 60 feet. Mm-hmm. There have been all kinds. You could have had a guard peripherally a long ways away that could have intercepted him. So when Stern said he could have been killed, he means any presenter, and many films have political overtones, as you've just pointed out very vividly. Those people, if there's no better protection than what we saw in front of Chris Rock, they're in danger. The comedian, and I don't know exactly what the council's called, has organized now a real statement of protest and support for comedians because they feel threatened. And why shouldn't they? Particularly in this culture. Every other act of violence is up.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and break everything down from the beginning here. Let me just state unequivocally, because I have seen people that have been within my circle posting that this is a victory for free speech. Wrong. It is not a free speech issue. It is not a First Amendment issue. Why? The government did not tell Chris Rock he can't tell that joke. It's not a free speech issue. Period. End of story. And for those of you that want to say that you're progressive and you want to deny what the actual Constitution read, you need to go back and listen to last week's episode of Southpaws, which was the First Amendment show. Moving forward, let me also state unequivocally, the joke that Chris Rock told was abhorrent. It was disgusting. You don't joke about people's medical conditions. You don't. Sorry. Semi-retired stand-up comic talking to you folks right now. I started doing comedy in 2011. I left in 2015. I'm starting to dip my toe a little bit back into it. One of the best advice that I received from another comic, you don't make fun of people. You make fun of the situation. Right there's the answer to that.
You're telling me that's not abhorrent to make fun of a medical condition. And yet we elected a president who stood for 3 minutes mimicking and making fun of a man that, and I'm not sure what the journalist condition was, but you'd have to say it was a medical condition.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that just went over people's heads.
Yeah. It certainly did.
But Will Smith has a right to respond to that medical condition, but not in that manner.
Exactly. Use your words. Now, let me go a little bit deeper here, because I have a little bit of experience with this. My mom, back 2 weeks before Christmas of 2008, was diagnosed with APL leukemia. She was in the hospital for 1 entire month while they gave her blood transfusions, while they gave her chemo and radiation to beat leukemia, which she did. However, one of the side effects of the chemo was that she lost her hair. At some point in 2009, she went to visit family in Kentucky, and she took her boyfriend with her. Now, as my friends know, I'm not too fond of her boyfriend. I think he's a jerk and whatever. Well, they went to a restaurant somewhere in Kentucky, and they were eating, and there were a couple people snickering about my mom's bald head. Well, to my surprise, my mom's boyfriend actually stood up and basically read them the riot act. This is a guy that is a former Marine sniper in Vietnam. This is a guy you don't want to mess with. I'm sure that he probably could have and would have, in the right mind, probably would have snatched him up. But he didn't. He used his words, and that was the end of it. The point is that I can understand Will Smith getting angry. Hell, at some point, I can understand wanting to get physical. Not smart to do, because you don't know what's going to happen, and that's something you can't ever take back once you start getting physical. So
smart. Listen.
Yeah.
You have millions of people that you know are watching. You're on 30 minutes away from being given one of the most magnanimous awards, at least in Hollywood. And you think that you have to go up and hit him. Again, I know about Will Smith's, I read his autobiography, where his dad came in, punched the wife in the head, collapsed the side of her head, on and on, and on and on. Okay, yeah, okay, we've all seen violence. The truth is, that is so far over the top to respond in that manner at that moment. You're at a bar with a couple drinks and your two buddies are there and you slap some guy, that's wrong. But that's a setting that should have a little less grip on your consciousness than sitting in front of millions and millions of people globally.
Mm-hmm.
Lou Alcindor, known as Jabbar now, has the best response, the absolute best response. And his first paragraph says that the black reputation for violence and the nonstop need to be better than whites in all areas to be approved, was set back. And what do the black pundits come out with in response to Jabbar's statement? Oh, yeah, the whites, they're just so critical and they'll jump on anything and they'll exaggerate it. That's not the point. You know the whites are like that, Will Smith. Don't blame the whites for being overly critical. You should have more control and be understanding of your representation to the black community. That's what's unconscionable. And what's worse than that was the acceptance, at least momentarily, by that crowd. Mm-hmm. That is WrestleMania at its finest. WrestleMania has its place. It's entertainment, and we know it all. But when you are slapping people in the face with the sound effects and people give it applause, how's that any different than a guy walking out in the mat down in Tennessee with a roll of toilet paper saying, hey, all you rednecks, you know what this is right here? Try one of this and take a bar of soap. Use that, you know?
Yeah, the old Andy Kaufman bit down in Memphis territory in pro
entertainment,
wrestling.
Known to be entertainment, right? I understand that. But the shock value of that is no different than drop kicking somebody over the ropes is for the crowd's incitement. Now we have a crowd being incited by a literal attack, a physical attack. Mm-hmm. It's gross. I'll never get over that response. I was shocked.
And it's funny that you mentioned the Memphis territory wrestling angle. Jerry the King Lawler, the retired star of Memphis, Tennessee, posted a meme that said, me and Andy did it better, and it was a picture of Lawler slapping Kaufman on David Letterman's show back in, I think it was 1981 or 2.
That was a skit, people knew it.
That was scripted. People didn't know it then. That was the thing, because they thought, oh, this is real. All that other stuff, oh, that's phony, but what's going on between Lawler and Kaufman, that's real.
My God. It was meant to hit an archetype in our culture, and that is the excitement and thrill of violence.
Yeah.
And I understand that you put that into Alex Karras, Dick the Bruiser.
Yeah.
Faked a fight at the Lindell Bar down in Detroit.
Yep.
To promote a future wrestling match.
Yep.
And it was effective. Here you got two well-known people throwing around each other in this bar. Okay, not necessarily my cup of tea, but that's understandable. This was a legitimate attack against a human being, assault and battery. He should have been arrested. Should have been arrested right then. Should have been removed from the academies right there and right then. I don't mean as a member. I mean physically. Whether he refused to or not, do they have any authority in that building?
Well, there's a little more to that. Chris Rock, apparently, LAPD was getting ready to arrest Will Smith and haul him to jail, and Chris Rock told him he wasn't pressing charges.
That was after. I'm talking about sitting there the evening of the attack.
No, that was the evening of the attack.
But the LAPD wasn't ready to arrest him that instantly.
Yes, they were. That came out.
How soon after the attack did Rock tell him not to do that?
It was backstage. During the ceremony.
Yeah, well, I think there was a lapse of time there where there was no deliberation. The format has its own protection.
Mm-hmm. And also, with ejecting him from the building, again, a producer this morning on the Today Show said that he was there. He was one of the producers, and Chris Rock said he also did not want Will Smith ejected from the building, which I don't understand, Chris's thinking on that, but
well, they shouldn't have even consulted Chris's thinking on that. Of course, Chris Rock is going to take the high road. Do you think the headlines the next day in the LA Times would be Chris Rock insists that Will be drug out? No. The Academy, the integrity of the Academy didn't need to consult the LAPD. They have security there. Read Stern's article. They should have had him physically walked out 15 seconds after he set his ass down in that chair and started attacking him verbally. That's got to be ended. That's got to be ended before he gets a chance to do that.
But once again, we have the precedent from 1973. John Wayne was also not ejected after he tried to storm the stage and punch a woman.
He wasn't on the stage. He was never seen publicly. We got to read about that story.
Yeah.
That's a whole different issue.
Yeah.
He didn't come out and sit gloatingly that he had physically attacked a Native American woman.
Yeah.
To apples and oranges.
Yeah. The big thing for me is that I don't care how it affects everybody else as a race or whatever. Will Smith needed to have control over his own anger issues and whatever. You don't do this, especially on worldwide global television. But then again, like you said, it goes back to what's our culture built on? This culture, the American culture, has been built on violence from day one back in the 1700s.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So how do we change it? Can we change it? Are we too late?
Oh, it's too late. Hey, I remember a little boy, I made guns out of sticks.
Yeah.
I made hand grenades out of rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Put ashes in cans behind the garage. And I'd throw the can, and when the ashes flew out, it looked like an explosion.
You weren't throwing rocks at other kids, were you, Jack?
No, but... I had the cap gun, bang, bang, the one that had the roll of caps and all that.
Oh, yeah. They sold those like crazy back in the 40s,
now,
50s,
was I naturally
60s.
violent? Did I crave having weapons of destruction in my hands at 4 years old? No. It was a culture.
Yeah.
I was exposed to it. I was fed it.
Yeah. Oh.
And millions of black young men were fed a big dose of it at the Academy Awards.
Yep, absolutely.
By a black leader.
Yeah.
Again, Sidney Poitier would have rolled over in his grave.
Yeah. Well, once again, that could go into the next debate. Should we be looking to actors, comics, etc., as role models? And that's a question that's been asked for 100 years. And
we will debate that for eternity, but the truth is, they are role models.
Yeah.
Whether they should be, whether we can do anything about it, they are role models.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm afraid you're right on that one. Where we should really be looking toward the working man as a role model. The guys that do hard work.
Oh, yeah. Where are those statues at? Where's the statue to Walter Reuther here in Michigan that did more for a working man than maybe anybody else? Improve people's lives. No, we have statues of guys that killed a lot of people. That's who the world... I mean, I just finished watching the Vikings. You want to talk about violence put on a plate with a side of sex. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't hit the main archetype of Western's culture, never seen one. Have you seen that series by any chance?
No, I haven't. But I'm well aware of how violent the Vikings actually were when they roamed the earth.
Well, I got to Elma College as an 18-year-old, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed freshman, and the first book they handed me was called "The King Must Die."
Oh,
I'm thinking, wait a second, what kind of book is this? And then it's conquest, it's violence, it's the very thrilling Hollywood intrigue that we just got a dose of. But it was in the historical content of Western civilization. That's our thrust. And some people, I would think, particularly sitting in that crowd, would realize it. I would have thought that Meryl Streep or somebody with enough consciousness would have realized. The bad thing is we as Americans claim that we're for peace and democracy, yet our history, just like the Christian history, is completely contradictory. Mm-hmm. Totally and completely. The Prince of Peace's history, the Christian Western civilization history, does not look like the captain is the Prince of Peace. Sorry. It's stained with blood.
Mm-hmm. That is one phrase I have always hated, the Prince of Peace. Coming out of the most violent book ever wrote.
Well, on my desk, as I'm talking with you, I've just finished, or close to finished, Jesus and John Wayne.
Oh, Lord.
Which is the systematic masculinizing, if there's such a word, of Jesus.
Well,
so that you ended up with guys like Boynton, who they were Christian warriors.
Mm-hmm.
They believe that they were God's man, and they want to kill as many infidels as they possibly could do, which is what the English were doing with the Vikings, and it's what the American pioneers were doing with the Cherokee and with the Apache. It is the history of mankind. And now as Ukraine has orphans whining and crying in pain and thousands killed and displaced, I thought some people thought we're beyond that kind of warfare. I know what happened in Yemen and Afghanistan and everything, that's all kind of fogged over, but it's on the front of world violence, barbarity, purposely bombing kids' schools and hospitals.
Yeah.
A nation in 2022. We're no farther from Genghis Khan or Ragnar Lothbrok, who was the most bloodthirsty but revered Viking of all time, or Genghis Khan, or Grant, or Lee. I mean, really.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the raiders in Ukraine, which is the Russians. I have seen some reports in the last 24 hours that Russia's been sustaining some losses.
Big losses.
Yeah. They
were attacked today.
I think Putin's going to have to rethink everything at this point.
Yeah, Russia's homeland, they blew up some fuel tanks in Russia today. That has ominous overtones to it.
Hey, can you blame them, though? You invade our country? Well, then fine. We're just going to do the same thing to you.
They're fighting for their life. That's understandable. That's when we do become as violent as it takes to save our life or our loved one's life.
As we've said on this show, zero tolerance. John Brown, Karl Popper, zero tolerance.
Yeah.
And speaking of a group with zero tolerance toward what Russia's doing, I've got this story. This is Nika Osorio writing for the International Business Times. This is dated March 21st. Ever since declaring war against Russian President Vladimir Putin, Anonymous, the decentralized international activist and hacktivist collective, has continued to relentlessly hit the Kremlin with attacks that are undermining the country's leadership and disrupting its narrative on the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. The latest is a printer hack, which allows the collective to send a message across the transcontinental country. The details of the latest attack against Russia were shared by Anonymous on the microblogging site Twitter. The tweet read, quote, "We have been printing anti-propaganda and Tor installation instructions to printers all over Russia for 2 hours and printed 100,000 plus copies so far. 15 people working on this op as we speak." End of quote. International Business Times had the opportunity to talk to one of the hacktivists, and they confirmed the hack. They also explained that the operation included PDFs printed on the hacked printers with a message telling Russians that its president, Kremlin, and Russian media have lied to them. The hacktivist collective also helped recipients install Tor, access real media, and get around Russian censorship. The Onion Router, or simply Tor, is free, open-source software that allows anonymous communication. One of the members of the group, who goes by the Twitter handle De Pay Porteur, told IBT, quote, "We hacked printers all across Russia and printed this PDF explaining that Putin, Kremlin, Russian media is lying, and then we instructed how to install Tor and get around their censorship to access real media." End of quote. They also revealed some actors working behind the scene to make the recent Russian printer hack possible. These include Anonymous Strategic Support, better known as ASS, and hashtag Operation Red Scare. Isn't that a great acronym?
Yeah, right.
International Business Times read a translation that was conducted by Google Lens. The English version of the PDF reads this way, quote, "Citizens of Russia, act now to stop terrorists. Putin killing over thousands in Ukraine," end of quote. And then continues, it says that, quote, "The people of Russia should find horror in Putin's actions," end of quote.
Yes, exactly. This is Putin's war. This is the manifestations of an absolute sociopath dictator singularly, which makes it even more absolutely disgusting that our own sociopath and residents here, Donald J. Trump, felt that he could ask Putin in the midst of Putin's barbarity, seriously, for papers or information released on Biden.
On Hunter Biden.
On Hunter Biden. Shocking.
But he's done it before. He did it with Zelensky a couple of years ago, asked for information on Hunter Biden.
Yeah, but Zelensky wasn't having a unilateral war against Georgia or against Poland from Ukraine, killing innocent people every day, bombing them while they slept.
Yeah.
We're supplying arms to Ukraine right now.
Yep. Yeah.
So you're appealing and chumming up with Putin, who's leading the country that we're fighting against. Yeah, of course it's by proxy. Absolutely. It doesn't make any difference.
And by the way, over the weekend, Trump doubled down on his Putin is smart and a genius comments.
Did you really? I missed that disgusting comment.
Yeah, he certainly did. Although he did say that Putin made a mistake invading Ukraine. Said it didn't work out too well for him. But he still just admires him. You know why?
Yeah.
Because Trump, Putin, Xi Jinping, the idiot in North Korea. Yeah. Because they are all bloodthirsty, wannabe tin pot dictators. And I'm going to tell you something. If you vote for Trump, you might as well vote for Putin. It's the same goddamn thing. It absolutely is. If you vote for a Republican, you might as well vote for Putin. And I'll state
that's
clear
not
as a bell.
Anyway.
Yeah. And Republicans need to hear this. They need to actually let this ruminate in what's left of their brain and say, I'm being a traitor if I vote for this son of a bitch. You know? They don't think in those terms. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll make it nice and simple. If you vote Republican, you're voting for a bloodthirsty tin pot dictator. Period. End of story. It's that
if
simple.
You never knew it before, you can tell a person by the friends, right? If you never knew that Trump is a tin pot sociopath who has one... See, there is something that is amazingly almost intriguing about a sociopath. And that is like a shark. They never stop swimming shark never sleeps.
No.
And a sociopath never has a break in its self-concern for its own self-aggrandizement,
Yeah.
They never get a break. The families never get a break. The citizens never get a break when they're led by these monsters. And like no other time in history, right now we have more dictatorial rule than at any time. The liberal democracies are diminished and are drying up at an alarming rate. And the lines are drawn right now. We said this on last week's show. That's the real battle. Yep. And Trump has a hard-on for Putin and the dictators in Saudi Arabia because he envies their ability to keep all the press totally contained. He envies their ability to cut the heads off the enemies, literally.
Yeah.
That's what he wants. Of course, he's not making up when he says he is envious or he's absolutely in awe of Putin.
Yeah.
So mark the date today, April the 1st. We're not fooling on this. This is not April's Fool.
No.
If you vote for Donald J. Trump, we could say any Republican, but let's keep this personal.
And I'm going to say any Republican because they're all the same. They're all evil, violent, conservative savages.
Yep, you might as well vote for Putin. You might as well send your envelope of money right straight to Putin. Say, here, Putin, buy another missile, get some more innocent kids at the other end of it.
Yep.
You might as well.
Yep. I'm glad you mentioned, by the way, we are recording this on Friday, April 1st, 2022. It is April Fool's Day. Happy birthday to my wonderful, lovely ex-wife. Happy birthday to your wonderful, lovely ex-wife, too, Jack.
Yeah, what kind of synchronization does that represent, Darren?
Who's the biggest
heavenly? What's that?
Who's the biggest fool?
Well, there's people that put emphasis on these kinds of things. Like there's meaning behind dates and numbers and everything. And here we are. Obviously, we have the same mind on many issues, Darren.
Yeah, holy moly.
I better not go any farther than that.
Yeah. By the way, just to wrap up the last story that we were telling you about, Anonymous had earlier told International Business Times that they are working on a data dump that will blow Russia away, whatever that means. So that could be real interesting. We'll see how that plays out. I want to get to a couple of First Amendment stories here. And these are true First Amendment stories here. This isn't, he was able to tell a joke. It's a victory for free speech. No, it ain't. Here's the real ones. This is Nabil Ramadna writing for KXAN Television out of Austin, Texas. Listen to this, Jack. This is dated March 18th. On March 9th, Suzette Baker was fired as head librarian at the Kingsland Branch Library in Llano County. She pointed out why she was removed from her position. It says, quote, "This is the final warning and termination for creating a disturbance, insubordination, violation of policies, and failure to follow instructions," end of quote. You want to know what those instructions were? She was told by her boss to remove books, and she didn't do it.
Wow.
I am proud of her for standing up for actual free speech.
Yep.
Baker said, quote, "The books in my library in Kingsland were not taken off the shelves. We did not move them. I told my boss that was censorship," end of quote. According to Baker, a group of people had reached out to the library system about books that they said were inappropriate or pornographic, and they wanted them removed. But she disagreed. She claims one of the books was about life as a transgender teen. Baker said, quote, "It is her biography of her life growing up as a transgender teenager, and obviously this group thought that was too much for their children to read, which no one is forcing their kids to read anything," end of quote. Lila Green Little, a patron of the county library, said, quote, "I always thought she was extremely professional, very knowledgeable, has a strong character, and did her job well to the best of my knowledge," end of quote.
Absolutely, she did.
Little
This
said,
is proof of that.
Oh, yeah. Little said the library system has seen recent changes and there has been no transparency. She said the library advisory board meetings are now closed to the public, which probably is a violation of state and maybe even federal law, and said there was also a change to the library system's online reading services, which moved from Overdrive to Bibliotheca. I guess it's the two different software systems. Little said, quote, "I have now counted 12 books that I know have been removed from Llano County Library, and I can't get clarification from the library system on why," end of quote. According to the Texas Tribune, the library staff conducted a thorough review of every children's book in the library to assess their content. Little said, quote, "There are very clear rules that should be followed with regards to censorship to books in the public library. Those rules were not followed," end of quote. Baker added, quote, "It may not be my book, it may not be your book, but it could be someone else's book, and we have no right to take that book away from them," end of quote. KXAN reached out to multiple Llano County officials looking for answers over the last week. They have heard nothing. Llano County's Human Resources Department told KXAN that it had no comment about the situation. Yeah, because they're probably going to get sued and they're probably going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And they deserve it. They deserve to lose.
But let's be honest, there's been legislation in numerous states and many on the docket that allow people to sue schools now if a teacher mentions the fact that there was a Jim Crow era, even if you mention the name Jim Crow. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to talk about carpetbaggers, Jim Crow era, you want to talk about the period of lynchings in the South? Nope, it's not there. We're going to glorify America strictly. I remember having read 1984, and my teacher, this is 60 years ago, in high school, talking about the ministry of truth that's mentioned. I'm sure you've read the book, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, imagine the government formulating an agency whose job it was to determine what's truth. Well, that's what we have.
Yeah.
We have Republicans now who are saying, we know what the truth is. You can't teach anything, but what we say is the truth. You might as well have a big square building with all the right redneck evangelicals sitting inside the windows in Washington with that sign up above, the Ministry of Truth, dictating and formulating what the truth is to be taught to young minds in America.
We already have that. They're called textbook publishers. We really do, Jack. You're a 30-year retired educator. I'm sure you can speak on that.
Yeah, down in Texas. Yeah. You bet. Yeah, I remember when I was still teaching, signing petitions where they were trying to take the word slavery out of their contemporary history books and say it wasn't slavery, it was the fulfillment of a migratory route. And I kid you not, that was their terminology.
Yeah, we've talked about
they no
that
longer
on the
will
show.
allow the word imperialism to be printed on the black and white page. Well, it can't be there.
Yeah.
Not in association with America.
Yep. And then just go down to Florida. You can't even say gay anymore if you're a teacher because that got signed into law.
Yeah, right. There's your new director of Ministry of the Truth right there.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, another future Putin named death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, these birds all flock together. I mean, they really do. They're attracted to each other.
Yeah, and then
I mean, a skunk's hold to another skunk is aromatic. It's tasty.
Yeah. And then, speaking of skunks, let's get to this next story here. This is Marina Petovsky writing for USA Today. This is dated March 30th. A teacher who tried to force a student to write the Pledge of Allegiance settled the lawsuit with the former high schooler for $90,000. American Atheist, the organization that represented the non-religious student, confirmed in a statement on Tuesday that the student's 12th grade sociology teacher at Klein Oak High School, located north of Houston, agreed to settle the case. The Texas Association of School Boards paid the settlement to resolve the case. In a statement, Nick Fish, president of American Atheist, said, quote, "Non-religious students often face bullying or harassment for expressing their deeply held convictions. No one should have to endure the years of harassment, disrespect, and bullying our client faced. The fact that this happened in a public school and at the hands of staff who should know better is particularly appalling." End of quote. The student in the case, identified as Marie Oliver in multiple reports, declined to recite the Pledge of Allegiance throughout her time in high school, objecting to the words "under God." She also cited her belief that the United States does not adequately guarantee liberty and justice for all, especially for people of color. That was included in Tuesday's statement by American Atheists. So good for Mary. I mean, this is what we need to have for an educator, is her, because she gets it.
Yeah. The idea of the teacher's responsibility, besides teaching mundane, pragmatic steps of learning, such as mathematics, right?
The 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
We have assumed, and it's even been expressed in many, many statements, that a teacher's responsibility is also to elucidate the student with truth. At one time in Europe, before they had public education, that's what the royal family told the teacher they must do, is to bring my son or daughter to an epiphany of understanding beyond 2 + 2, an understanding of the truth. That's gone. That's absolutely gone. That's not a teacher's. A teacher can't touch that now.
Yeah.
A teacher cannot express the horror of enslaving for 400 years black families. Yeah. The pictures that were in my history book of slaves stacked like cords of wood in the boat. You saw it in your history book.
Yeah.
I know you did.
Yeah.
That's gone. It's out.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Oh no, those were just people migrating over here.
Or the picture of the man's back. I taught a lot of history in summer school. In any school I ever taught, summer school in history, that picture was there. It's a black man bent over, showing the whip marks on his back.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
gone.
I've seen that.
That's out.
Wow. Let me continue the story here. American Atheist said the teacher in the case, identified as Benji Arnold, required Oliver and other students to write out the pledge in 2017, and after Oliver refused, he told her she would be failed on an assignment. The organization said he also offered to pay students to move abroad if they had criticisms about the United States, but they would have to pay him double if they came back to the country. So he's one of those.
Yeah.
According to the lawsuit filed by Oliver, Arnold compared people who refused to say the pledge, quote, to Soviet communists, members of the Islamic faith seeking to impose Sharia law, and those who condone pedophilia, end of quote. So right there's a whole gambit. You get the commies in Russia, the Islamic jihadists, and pedophiles all lumped in one. This is ridiculous.
Well, that's how you do it.
Yeah. The Klein Independent School District, in a statement to USA Today, said it did not enter into any settlement in this matter. The district also confirmed to USA Today that Benji Arnold is still employed by the district. You know what I would do if I was the administrator? The two simple words from Vince McMahon: "You're fired."
Yeah. But the superintendents are on the chopping block as well, and they know it. Mm-hmm. So these people that go to the school board meetings right here in our city and around the state of Michigan and bully their way into presenting a false narrative about the safety of masks and vaccinations, if a superintendent stood up and expressed their opinion, I know, I've witnessed it, they don't. Yeah. They stay right in the middle of the road, to the detriment and health of their own students. But they know the ramifications. They're told the ramifications. If they stand against the thrust of these idiots, they'll be recalled. Yeah. They will have a candidate to take them out of their school board position and or get rid of the superintendent. That battle's going on. Yeah. So you have a small percentage of people dictating now in schools the agenda.
And this is a plan that's been plotted out by the Republican Party. They want to take over local government. That includes your school boards. That includes your township boards. That includes your village boards. They want to start small because they know if they can gain a foothold there, that they've got control over everything.
Yep. That redneck with the red hat and the vest and the weapon in his hand that was on the Capitol steps January 6th, he's in the boardroom now.
Yep.
Your local school.
Sure is. Soviet communists, Islamic jihadists, and pedophiles.
Yeah. Can you throw anything else in there?
Yeah.
See what else? Barbarians, bullies, sissies, everything could afford. You remember when you were in third grade, when you got mad at it, you thought every bad name you could think of, you let them have it. You big dumb skunk. You
doo-doo head.
Doo-doo head, yeah. Well, that's their mentality. It hasn't advanced much, has it?
No, it hasn't. Oliver's mother first sued Arnold, the school district, and other teachers in 2017. Oliver has since taken over the case. A federal judge in 2020 dismissed the lawsuit against the district and the other school employees except for Arnold. By the way, as we mentioned on last week's show, the First Amendment show, the United States Supreme Court has ruled repeatedly, by the way, students cannot be forced to salute the flag or say the Pledge of Allegiance because it violates their rights under the First Amendment. Period. End of story, folks. You can't do it. And if you got a teacher that tries to force your kid to do it, go right straight to the principal with a lawyer and say, this stops now or I'm filing a $100 million lawsuit. Bankrupt them. Bankrupt these sons of bitches.
You're still thinking we have some rules and some laws?
Yeah, I'm hoping.
But they're written somewhere. Whether or not they're fulfilled. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be overly simplistic, but that's a clear-cut rule and law that I thought people understood and believed and administered. But they don't.
Except for the evil, violent, conservative savages that want things their way and they don't want any other way.
That's a term we've coined here. Mm-hmm. Darren has coined that. We both through the years have brought some terms in.
Freedom.
Freedom, there's one. But a savage Republican is actually a little redundant, but no, it's perfect.
Oh, that's very true. Jack, I want to move on to our next story here. We have been talking about PFAS not only on this show, but also on our sister publication, the public affairs show that's appropriately titled Period, End of Story. We've been talking about PFAS. So I've got this story. This is Sandy Lamott writing for CNN. This is dated March 25th. Listen to this, folks. Before you go to fast food, you better listen. Alarming levels of dangerous chemicals known as PFAS were discovered in food packaging at a number of well-known fast food and fast casual restaurants and grocery store chains. That is according to a new report released last week, Thursday, by Consumer Reports. The highest levels of indicators for PFAS were found in food packaging from Nathan's Famous, Cava, Arby's, Burger King, Chick-fil-A, Stop and Shop, and Sweet Green. Now, we've told you shouldn't buy anything at Chick-fil-A because they're a bunch of homophobes there. So we strongly discourage you don't ever shop at Chick-fil-A. Screw them.
So those lineups of rednecks in front of Chick-fil-A, what they're really getting is doses of PFAS, huh?
Yeah. Hey, let
maybe
them.
There's a God.
But don't tell them. Let them keep getting at PFAS. Often, hey, I'm serious.
Yeah, we're at that point. I'm not laughing at that. I'm just laughing at go over on 28th Street and the Beltline.
Oh, you don't even need to go that far, Jack. Just go about 3 miles from your house, right over in Standale, where the brand new Chick-fil-A is, and the lines are wrapped right around the building and out to the street. Not kidding. Not an exaggeration. Often called forever chemicals because they don't break down in the environment, PFAS is used in food packaging to prevent grease and water from soaking through food wrappers and beverage cups. PFAS can also be found in the ink used to print logos and instructions on food containers. That's scary.
It is.
The new report comes more than 2 years into the COVID-19 pandemic when the public has relied heavily on takeout and grocery deliveries. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention called exposure to PFAS a public health concern, citing studies that found the human-made chemicals can harm the immune system and reduce a person's resistance to infectious diseases. Now, that's new.
Yeah.
Before, they've been focusing on the cancers that PFAS causes.
It's ubiquitous. Everybody has PFAS.
Yeah, we've talked about that for years.
My son, bless his soul, years ago, said, that's popcorn bags that you put in the microwave and pop, and there's stuff on the wrappers that's highly cancerous.
Yeah.
It was PFAS. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Consumer Reports collected 118 food packaging products sold by 24 companies in the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. It tested those products for organic fluorine, which is a marker for PFAS. Researchers then sent the samples of products with the highest levels to an independent laboratory that could perform more specific tests. Now, there's not too many regulatory limits on PFAS, as we've mentioned in the past. There's no federal limits. Connecticut, Maine, Minnesota, New York, Vermont, and Washington State have passed bills banning intentional use of PFAS in food packaging. They haven't set a specified limit, though. A new law will take effect, though, in California in January 2023. The limit is set at 100 parts per million, which is still way too high. In Denmark, the regulatory limit is 20 parts per million. Consumer Reports found the highest indicators for PFAS in 2 types of bags for sides at Nathan's Famous Restaurants. That's the hot dog place up and down the East Coast. High indicators of PFAS were also found in a Chick-fil-A sandwich wrapper and in fiber bowls at Cava, which is a Mediterranean restaurant chain. I've never heard of them. Have you?
I've heard of them. I've never been there. I have heard of them.
Okay. Indicator levels in the 3 and 400s were found, 3 and 400 parts per million were found in a bag of cookies at Arby's, bamboo paper plates at Stop and Shop, and in a bag for both cookies and French toast sticks at Burger King, which I love their French toast sticks, so I'm kind of screwed there. Indicators in the 200s were found in a sweet green paper bag for focaccia, additional items at Cava, and in bags for French fries, cookies, and chicken McNuggets at McDonald's. Oh, boy.
Yeah, folks, if you really want a buffet table of PFAS, just let corporate America take care of it. They'll get it to you.
Oh, absolutely.
So you'll get all you need.
Yeah. By the way, those companies are trying to get the PFAS out of these, some to a greater degree than others. Whole Foods became the first grocery chain in North America to publicly commit to remove PFAS from takeout containers and deli and bakery paper. That was back in 2018. Other companies have followed suit, including Ahold Delhaize, Albertsons, Amazon.com, Cava, Chipotle, Freshii, McDonald's, Panera Bread, Sweet Green, Trader Joe's, and Wendy's. So some of the companies are saying that part of the reason that they're having problems getting the PFAS out of their wrappers is because of supply chain issues that are holdover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I don't know if I believe that.
Yeah, what are they going to do if you ever lose the supply chain excuse?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
But I know you eat a lot on the road, traveling and so forth. And
not as much as I used to. I've been trying to stay healthier.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
You've been on me for years about eating healthier, and I finally watched Forks Over Knives, and that is eye-opening.
A life changer. Yep.
Yes, it is. It definitely changed my life, sure.
That's when I started.
Yep.
That day.
Yeah. Real quickly, before we get into our off-the-cuff, one last thing that I want to mention. The FDA and the CDC have now approved a second booster of the Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. I just got mine yesterday. Please go get it. The variant of Omicron is starting to spread in the United States. It's ravaging China. It's ravaging Europe right now. Get boosted, please. Don't do it for me. Don't do it for you. Do it for the people that you love that are immunocompromised. I beg you, please get boosted.
Yeah.
And one final story. Here's our off-the-cuff. Folks, hide the children. This is Dr. Catherine Schuster-Bruce writing for Business Insider. This is dated March 31st. A man's penis turned black after he injected it with cocaine, according to a report by the American Journal of Case Reports. The 35-year-old Hispanic man went to the emergency room with excruciating pain in his penis and scrotum 3 days after injecting cocaine into a penile vein. That is according to a report from doctors working in the Bronx, New York. On examining him, the doctor said his penis was swollen, black, ulcerated, and oozed a foul-smelling discharge.
Ugh.
The man had a long history of intravenous drug use, according to the doctors. They said that cocaine is one of the most dangerous drugs available because it's highly addictive. Now, listen to this, Jack. The drug can be snorted, smoked, or dissolved and injected into a vein. When it's injected, it can trigger blood vessel inflammation, which can cause gangrene, which is the death of body tissue. Now, here's the part that's the kicker here. Doctors have said that cocaine in the U.S. can be cut with a deworming drug, which causes blood vessel inflammation as well. So Trump's dewormer is rearing its ugly head. Now it's in the cocaine.
Wow. So you know what? I am way behind the curve on this. I'm just trying to understand what the advantage would be in a drug addicted person's mind in inserting it there.
Well, actually, here's the explanation. The man told the doctors he had previously injected cocaine in the same vein at least twice in the past 2 weeks without any complications. The dorsal penile vein the man used runs the length of the shaft. The dorsal vein is an unusual place to inject, but it's not uncommon for drug users to use new injection sites once others, such as your arm veins, become damaged. The man refused surgery to cut away the dying tissue. He was treated with a cocktail of strong IV antibiotics for 5 days and then a further 5 days of oral antibiotics along with wound care. His clinical condition slowly improved, but unfortunately the man refused drug rehab treatment. He was later lost to follow-up, which basically means the doctors wanted to follow up with him and the guy disappeared.
Wow, so many images flashing through my mind this close to lunch.
I know. No mountain oysters for you today, huh?
No. I've got some vegan hot dogs. I'm going to keep those frozen too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think we need to end it right there before it degenerates any further.
We reached the limit, Darren.
We have. Folks, we are out of time for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I am Jack Prince.
Please support independent media and the First Amendment.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.